Hello, everyone. Welcome along to Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, the tennis betting podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. It's round two of the US Open men's singles. So I've just landed in New York. I'm going to come on and tell you about my trials and tribulations in a little bit. But before that, I'm going to say joining me, who's coming here next week. Look at the weather forecast when you come in, Sean. It's going to be sweltering. It's Sean Calvert, our senior ATP Tour handicapper. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Yeah, I haven't been luxuriating in first class or anything today, but yeah, apart from that, all good. Yeah, you seem to have been enjoying the commute today, from what I could see.
It was a very lovely flight. British Airways staff looked after me very, very well. Champagne on request, fantastic. Bucks Fizz though for me. Couldn't make my mind up what I wanted. So I went for Bucks Fizz. So and then we had a nice three-course meal. As you do, afternoon tea.
As you do. I'm not sure I'll be doing that on Friday with the very same firm. Incidentally, there'll be a distinct disparity in travelling class.
But let me tell you one thing though. Straight out of security, American airports usually a nightmare. They ask you loads of questions, fingerprints, all kinds of things. Straight out security, no problem. But an hour wait for the taxi that I booked because the traffic coming out of Manhattan was horrendous. And arrive at my hotel, straight outside the hotel building. You can hear it from where I am now. I'll show you some videos a little bit later. I'll put it on the Instagram story and on our Twitter account. There has been a huge burst water main 3 blocks along from Times Square on 7th Avenue. Absolutely carnage. So I don't know how I'm going to be able to get in and out the road here. The journey was terrible. They should see the hole in the ground. It's horrendous. But anyway, look, arrive nice and safe. If you haven't watched any of the tennis today, what's it been like? What are the conditions like? What's your take from what you saw today?
It looks like pretty typical sort of US Open conditions. Really, it doesn't look overly quick to me. If anything, I'd say it was, I don't know, from my own sort of eyes, it looks a shade slower. Usually averages sort of 79% holds of serve, 72% first serve points won in the 3 years that's been on a lake hole prior to this. But after 32 main draw matches this year, it's slightly down on that, 77% holds and 71% first serve points won. So it certainly isn't at the moment playing. Certainly isn't playing quicker than previous years. It's, if anything, it's playing slightly slower. But as you said, it's going to heat up towards the Labor Day weekend. Conditions will probably get a little bit quicker if that's the case. But at the minute, I would say it's no more than a medium-paced hard court. This really.
Yeah, and the weather conditions tomorrow aren't so good. A little bit of rain around, and obviously as well for Thursday. There's 2 days that I'm going to the tennis. Going to be a bit of rain, so that might slow it down a little bit more. But any takeouts? Anyone you've seen so far in the opening round that you've watched so far? I thought, you know what, they looked good. I mean, Novak Djokovic did Novak Djokovic things, but he didn't play anybody of any note. But anyone you thought,
he was still really good though, Djokovic. Even for it's Alexandra Muller. Okay, he's not expected to really test Djokovic, but it's still we'll come on to him in a minute. I'm going to talk about his match, but yeah, very, very impressive performance from him. Very easy match as we expected for Daniil Medvedev. Aslan Karatsev actually was playing fabulously well, beat Jiri Lehecka in straight sets. If he keeps that level up, Karatsev, which he probably won't, but if he does, he could be an interesting sort of dark horse in that third quarter of the draw, which we talked about on the show, which has got Casper Ruud in it, and it did have Holger Rune, but of course he lost. No massive surprise that he didn't go particularly well at this US Open given these injury problems. Slightly surprised, obviously, that he lost to someone like Kabash Baena on a hard court, but he obviously isn't fit still, is he, Holger Rune? So that quarter for me is wide open. If Karatsev carries on playing like that, like he played against Lehecka, then he's got a decent chance of getting through that third quarter. But it can come off the rails very quickly, can't it, with Karatsev? But yeah, it's been some decent performances, some not so good performances, quite a lot of injuries and stuff flying around. Yeah, it's been an interesting opening 24 hours for sure.
Yeah, we're recording this now on Tuesday, day 2, afternoon in the States, evening in the UK. There are matches going on currently. Head to the Bet Rivers website. You'll see all the in-play there for the first round. But this podcast here is focusing on tomorrow. This is Wednesday's matches, on the first set of matches on round 2. And it's the top half of the draw. So we've got 5 matches. Is it 5? 6 matches. It's 6 I haven't got the notes here in front of me. Should it's 5 matches?
Should be 5, yeah, unless you've stuck
5.
one in that I didn't know about.
I was just going to make one up just to sort of throw a curveball in there. But we've got 5 matches we're going to talk about. The first couple we're going to talk about are going to feature some very, very heavy favourites and some very one-sided matches. According to Bet Rivers, Sean might disagree with that. He may agree with that. We'll find out over the next 25 minutes or so. But the first match we're going to talk about is Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's up against Stricker. Now, Tsitsipas was pretty impressive in the first round match against Raonic. It was a dangerous opponent, but Raonic was nowhere near at his best. He's a heavy favourite here. Tsitsipas minus 770. Stricker is plus 525. They've met once before on the grass in Stuttgart, and Tsitsipas won that fairly easily. I remember playing the over on the totals in that match, and I didn't win, and it was quite an easy win for Tsitsipas. The spread here is 6.5 in the Greeks' favour. And the total is 35.5. Now, that, to me, looks a little bit low, Sean. I know you've given reasons why you're not really a totals better. You like to look at other markets sort of around if you're going to play you over the sets instead of the total games. But Stricker is someone who is very good for a tiebreak usually. And Tsitsipas is quite a slow starter. So my lean in this one is for the over 35 games at minus 115. Are you on the same wavelength for me, or you disagreeing on this match?
Yeah, same sort of thought process. First thing to say probably is that Milos Raonic was really poor against Tsitsipas. He served at 46% first serves, which gives himself no chance, really. 8 aces, but 8 double faults and 48 unforced errors in 3 sets. So, Tsitsipas will come off the court as he always does. He's not shy of bigging himself up. He'll probably say, I didn't see the interview, but he probably said, yes, I played great. Which is what he normally does when he's won. But, a Milos Raonic has barely played in 2 years, serving at less than 50% and in errors every other shot. Okay, fair enough. Tsitsipas will be very, very pleased with that, but not great from Raonic. I just think this is about Tsitsipas. If Stricker serves well, I think he's going to have a tough time returning that left-handed serve of Stricker's. If you can compare it to, it's similar sort of situation to the Ben Shelton match that he played in Cincinnati, and Tsitsipas didn't even create a single breakpoint chance against Shelton. He won it 7-6, 7-6, but there was not a sniff of a breakpoint in that match. He hadn't got a clue what to do with that Shelton serve. And anyone that can kick a serve up high with decent pace to the backhand of Tsitsipas is going to give him trouble. Raonic didn't do that in a poor serving performance in the first round. Yeah, looking at what Tsitsipas has done so far this hard court summer, as I said, he didn't create a single breakpoint chance against Shelton. He didn't break Hurkacz either, and he didn't break Monfils. So he's managed to break a Raonic that was very, very below par. But I just think Stricker can do a similar job to what Shelton did to him with that left-handed serve, make it tough on the backhand side. He qualified well, Stricker, and then beat the inform Alexei Popyrin, who's been playing well in recent months. And he did it by punishing the backhand side. He knew that Popyrin's backhand was weaker. The left-hander is able to concentrate most of the traffic that way, and I think that's what he'll do against Tsitsipas. Going back to that match that you talked about in Stuttgart, Stricker actually did win 88%, a very big 88% of his first serve points against Tsitsipas in that Stuttgart match. But he didn't make enough first serves, and he was not as good off the ground then as he is now. He only won 22% of his second serve points in that match, Stricker. That's what let him down. So I feel like he's better prepared, Stricker, this time. If he serves well, he's got to serve well, because he didn't serve particularly great against Popyrin. I think he only made 54% of his first serves. He needs to get that up around sort of 60. If he does that, I think Tsitsipas will find it difficult to break him. Certainly at first. I've gone for over 10.5 games there in set 1. That's a plus 200 chance with Bet Rivers.
That sounds a great price, plus 200, over 10.5. I like that play indeed. I like the 35.5. I think the idea of going with the angle of being a tight first set is definitely the way to go in this one. Tsitsipas is the heavy favourite, but we think Stricker will give him problems. He is a big server. He does play a huge amount of tie breaks, and games and overs is definitely the way to profit in that first match of round 2 that we have covered for you here. Remember to head to the Bet Rivers website. They'll have all the markets available. We don't know the order of play yet, but it'll start 11 a.m. Eastern time, the matches. We don't know the order of play. It's a little bit later today, but all the action will be 11 a.m. Eastern time start. The next match is an extremely heavy favourite, as you would expect. Novak Djokovic, an unbettable favourite up against Zapata Miralles, who's plus 1,700. Zapata Miralles has had an awful year on hard court. Sorry, he's only won one match, and that was in the first round here. He lost 6 matches, and he's up against a Djokovic you touched on earlier in the show. How impressive he was. I know he didn't have much to beat in Muller in round 1, but the manner of Djokovic's win, a 6-love set, very dominant. He could have probably won the second set even more convincing as he did. The crowd went wild when Muller won again. Djokovic is here, his first match back since COVID, obviously, and he's got a point to prove. He won in Cincinnati as well. The market is obviously extremely favourable in terms of Djokovic here. Minus 10.5, the spread, minus 106. And the total is 26.5. Now, Sean, I'm one of these people that over the years always wanted to get with the dog plus 10.5. When it got to double figures, I always wanted to get with the dog. But it never usually works out like that. Nadal used to win by a lot more. Alcaraz wins by a lot more. And this Djokovic here now, I'm actually thinking of bucking the trend and getting with Djokovic minus 10.5, which would have been unthinkable years ago, given how poor Zapata Miralles' year has been so far. And at 26.5, I can only be an under better rather than over better. Am I crazy, or are you with me on this one?
It's not often that I like these sort of bets, but a lot of people will, and I am quite tempted with this actually. I'm just not sure how Zapata Miralles is going to win games against Djokovic on a hard court. You know, he doesn't have the weaponry to do it. His serve is really weak. It's not like he's gonna kind of the serve's going to help him through service games. It's not going to happen. Djokovic is going to be in every point of this match on this Zapata Miralles serve. He doesn't have a particularly big ground game either. Zapata, he normally wins his matches with durability, winning lots of long rallies on the clay, perhaps being the better physical condition than some of his opponents on the clay. Pretty consistent, you know, doesn't miss much, but that isn't going to be good enough against Novak Djokovic. You know, Karen Khachanov played Zapata Miralles at the Australian Open earlier on this season, and he won by 10.5 games on the handicap. I think he finished it 6-love. So Khachanov can do it. I'm pretty sure Novak Djokovic probably could. Finished in 27 games that Khachanov match. And that was only because the first set, I think the first set went to a tiebreak or 7-5. First set was close. The second two were certainly not. Let's look at what Zapata Miralles has done away from clay at main level in his career. 6 wins, 22 losses. So that's a 21% win rate. His service points won and return points won total is just 92. And he only wins 33% of his return points, which is, you know, pretty poor. Only held serve 70% of the time and only broken 15% of the time for a whole break total of 85. You know, Muller only won 5 games against Djokovic in round 1. I could see this being either the same or potentially even worse for Zapata Miralles. I'm just not sure how he's going to win games. I'm really not. This could be a very heavy win for Djokovic, assuming he plays to a similar sort of level as he did against Muller. I could see Zapata Miralles throwing the towel in as early as the sort of second set. You might be able to get in play 6-love set, something like that. I could definitely see there being a 6-love in this. I just don't see how he's even going to keep this close, Zapata Miralles. My thought here, it just scares me. It doesn't sit well with me. But Djokovic minus 10.5 games. That was a 1.95 chance when I looked at this earlier on. That would be my thought in that one. I'm a bit skittish about these sort of bets, but that would be what I'd be looking at here for sure.
I'm exactly the same as you. It's minus 106 to 10.5, 26.5 the totals. I just can't see how I can go over. But also, like, it goes against every rule of my betting philosophy.
Yeah, that's what puts me off. But I know a lot of people will want to do this, and I couldn't put them off because I just don't see how Zapata's going to win games.
But are we old school? Are we thinking about like the games matches years ago when they'd be 6-4, 6-4, and then the Pete Sampras's of this world and Roger Federer's this world? I mean, it might be a rule that has changed now. I think people who've been betting Alcaraz minus 10.5 and 9.5 and Nadal in recent years, and obviously now Djokovic as well, they'll probably be cashing. Back in the day, it may not have been the case, but it's like under football bet. I'm an under total goals bettor. Everyone bets overs and cashes now. Well, I can't bet. It's something about it. I can't do it. I have to bet the unders. But it's something about the heartbreak of seeing a 95th minute goal going that cashes loses your bet. It's a bit like that with this market. But really, on the form we've seen now as Zapata Miralles this year, it's impossible to see how he can challenge and how that 26.5 under can't cash in the 10.5. But no official bet, Sean. Just a lean because of that sort of attachment that we can't do it.
Yeah, it's a mental thing with me, I think, but I think a lot of people will be keen on either the unders or the -10. It just seems like a massive handicap, but I can't see. I can't see Zapata winning games, so that would be my lean there for sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's next match we're going to talk about is in American in action. It's the number 2 American, I believe, Tommy Paul. He's -290. No, number 3 American. Tommy Paul is the 14th seed, -295 up against Safiullin, who's +230. The head-to-head is 1-0 to Safiullin, but that was on clay in Madrid this year, so that's not Paul's best surface. Paul is a favourite by 4.5 on the spread here. You can bet Paul -4.5, -134. Safiullin +4.5 is +104. And the total is 37.5. There's a lot of people, Sean, talking up Tommy Paul this week. A lot of tennis betting experts I've spoke to on social media, a lot of people I've spoke to in the UK think Tommy Paul could go deep here and come through, surprise in some big matches and maybe even potentially win his quarter. It's going to be tough for him, but he is in the easier part of the draw. Do you think he's going to have any problems today against a man who leads the head-to-head against Safiullin?
I think he's pretty short, Tommy Paul. He doesn't have a particularly great record at the US Open. He also lost, by the way, to Safiullin at US Open Juniors, which you probably don't have on the head-to-head because it was quite a few years ago. Beat him in straight sets, Safiullin at the US Open Juniors. I think it was back in 2014. Well, that's obviously not relevant to now, almost 10 years later. But either way, Safullin's beat him twice. They'll both know that. They'll both remember that. So Safullin's not going to be concerned about playing Tommy Paul. As I said, he doesn't have a particularly great record yet at the US Open, Tommy Paul. 3 wins, 5 losses, and a service point. This is in the main draw, and a service points won, return points won total of 98, and a service hold break total of 95. So his record so far, it's not great at all at this particular tournament. He actually took 5 sets to beat Zapata Miralles, the aforementioned Zapata Miralles. Took 5 sets to beat him last year here, Tommy Paul. And in the 8 matches that he has played at the US Open so far, he's only won 1 in less than 5 sets, and that was when he beat Travaglia yesterday in the first round here. So he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to improve on his US Open record, which isn't great. Safiullin should fancy this. He's coming off a Wimbledon quarter-final. He had a bit of time off after that, and he had a couple of bad results, really. He should have beaten Nicholas Jarry in the first match back that he had, which I think was in Cincy or Canada, one of the two. Setting a break up, managed to lose that one to Jarry. Then he lost a really bad one at Winston-Salem to Juan Manuel Cerundolo. But, having tasted the quarterfinals of a major, he should be coming in here, fancying this. Got no pressure on him at all. Tommy Paul's got all the pressure on him. He knows he can beat Tommy Paul, beaten him before a couple of times. I think this is going to be tight. I think this could be another long one. I just can't have Tommy Paul at minus money to win it, either 3-0 or 3-1. That just seems very, very short to me on the basis of what he's done at this tournament so far. So I've taken Safiullin plus 1.5 sets here at plus 114 with Bet Rivers.
Safiullin plus 1.5 at plus 114, given his record at Wimbledon. And Tommy Paul's poor record here at the US Open. But it could be a public play. Tommy Paul, as I said, a lot of people bigging up his chances. The public could be getting behind him. American in New York, it could be. But sometimes I keep telling you, all the American viewers and listeners here, don't bet with your heart, bet with your head. And Safiullin at plus 230 probably is the value. But the bet here is Safiullin plus 1.5 sets. So Paul does win 3-2. We're all happy, aren't we, Sean? Let's go on to the next one. It's Mannarino up against Marozsan. Now, Mannarino is the more experienced opponent. He's had a lot of problems with injuries this year. He's minus 295. His record on hard isn't that great. 13 wins from 24 matches. Marozsan is 3-3, but he did look quite good in his first round match. Marozsan is plus 225 to win this match. Marozsan, many people will know him because he beat Carlos Alcaraz in Rome, in Italy, at the Italian Open. But since then, hasn't really done anything. Marozsan is a favourite here. Marozsan is an underdog here, and he's a 4.5 underdog on the spread, and the total is 36.5. That Marozsan win over Alcaraz, was that just a shock win that you just have, or was that showing what his true potential is like? Because if he can replicate that form, he's certainly going to give Mannarino some problems here.
Yeah, he's got good weapons, Marozsan. I just wonder if Mannarino will be a little bit overwhelmed by the pace and power coming at him from Marozsan. I watched quite a lot of his match yesterday against Richard Gasquet in the first round. Marozsan should have won it 3-0. I think it's just a lack of experience on the Hungarian's part that he didn't manage to win it 3-0. He was 2 sets up and he led 5-3. Couldn't serve it out, ended up losing that set in a tiebreak. Similar situation in set 4. He served for the match again in set 4. Again, couldn't do it. Had to go to a tiebreak, lost the tiebreak. Ended up winning it in 5. But as I said, if I think that's just a bit of a lack of experience at this level. I think if, a few years down the line, he would have won that match 3-0. He was hitting with too much power, too much depth, too much precision for Gasquet. He also threw in a few drop shots as well. He obviously plays a lot on clay. Decent touch. If you are someone like Gasquet who likes to kind of stay deep, that's his kind of default position. He exposed that court position very well. If you hit him with a lot of power, it was sort of making Gasquet want to stay deep, and then he was chucking in the drop shot. It was all too much for Gasquet. He should have won it in straights, as I said. Mannarino doesn't have a particularly great record at the US Open either. 12-12 win-loss. Never passed the last 32 at this particular tournament. Service points won, return points won, total of 99 at the US Open. It's all very, very average. And he's not a particularly quick starter. I've said this before on this show. He's often a very, very slow starter in matches, Mannarino. He's only won the opening set at the US Open in under 12 games once in his last 10 matches in the main draw of the US Open. He's lost the opening set 6 times in his last 10 matches of this particular tournament. So a slow starter. Never met Marozsan before, so it might take him a little bit of a time to adapt and get that kind of crafty style of his going. Just to lean on this one, but I like the idea of backing Marozsan to win the opening set at plus 150 with Bet Rivers.
If Marozsan does win the first set, it makes the in-running play betting very, very interesting. Remember that Bet Rivers have an offer on the in-running play that is below us on the screen here. It's a match bonus on your bet up to $25 in play on in matches throughout the US Open. So the offer is running on the ticker below us as we are here. Also remember to head to Bet Rivers website. There's about 42 different markets. So there's no better website across America for tennis betting than Bet Rivers. They have more markets than anybody else. And this is the place to be for tennis betting. Final match, Zhang against Ruud. Now, obviously, Casper Ruud has got to the final here last year. Surprisingly got to the final, in my opinion. I don't think he's had anywhere near as good a season as he did last year. And we spoke about him as someone who we were shocked that he potentially be a world number 1. He's a heavy favourite here. He had the opportunity to be world number 1. He's a heavy favourite here up against Zhang, minus 480. Zhang is plus 350. Ruud has won their only previous encounter, but that was at the French Open this year, which you would expect Casper Ruud to get the better of Zhang here. But Zhang is a decent opponent here. And he beat JJ Wolf in the last round. I know it was a long match, but he beat JJ Wolf here, which was a great win for him. I'm really surprised by how heavy favourite Casper Ruud is here. And I'm very heavily surprised that Zhang is a 6.5 underdog. I know he's minus 141, but even getting 5.5 starter and more favourable odds on the ticker, you can move that across. I quite like that. And the total is 36.5 here. I want to get with Zhang in some capacity. I think Ruud is beatable here.
Yeah, I'm not convinced about Casper Ruud that he'll win easily. He'll probably win, but I'm not convinced that he's going to win this as comfortably as these odds suggest that he will. I mean, he's played 14 completed matches in his career at the US Open so far, and he's only won 3 of them in straight sets. So immediately, I'm thinking potentially overs. Let's have a look at the ones that he did win in straight sets. Has that gone off my screen? They're not against great players generally. One of them was against lucky loser Yuichi Sugita in 2021. He won in straight sets. The other one was against Kyle Edmund when Kyle Edmund was world number 601 last year. He won both those in straight sets. And the only other one he's won in straight sets at the US Open was against Berrettini when last year, I think it was in the quarterfinals when Berrettini had an absolute shocker. Ruud just mopped up the rest of it there to win it in straight sets, mopped up the errors from Berrettini. And in those 14 completed matches, Casper Ruud has only won the opening set 8 times, and 3 of those 8 were on a tie break. So he does tend to be vulnerable early at the US Open. The conditions, again, they're not particularly quick. I'd like them to be quicker to really oppose Casper Ruud. I think they're playable for Casper Ruud. As you said, he played Zhang on his favoured clay. at the French Open earlier on this year. Zhang was a set-up in that one, won the opener, and he was 4-all in the second, Zhang, and then he started to make some peculiar shot choices, started doing a bit of serve and volley, and I think his discipline kind of went, and he didn't really play particularly the right way from there on in, and that allowed Casper Ruud to get his forehand back into play, which is obviously what he wants to be doing, because prior to that, it was Zhang that was, I watched this match, it was Zhang that was at least the equal, if not the better, in the backhand to backhand exchanges. And Ruud couldn't really get his forehand in. But then, as I said, Zhang started to make a few tactical errors for me, and it all went a bit wrong for him from then on in. He's got a very, very good kick serve, Zhang, that he can use against the Ruud backhand to good effect. The thing that would worry me is the fact that he had to go the full distance against Wolf, having, like Marozsan, having wasted a chance to win it in straight sets. He was 2 sets up and a double breakup in the third set in that match. Zhang ended up going all the way to 5 sets, and that might cost him physically, because he had a physical problem in Winston-Salem last week against Fucsovic. He had a bit of a problem there, so that would slightly put me off, the fact that he did have to go 5. But if he's fit, Zhang to win the opening set at a price of around 2-1 with Bet Rivers, I think that's a decent spot. It's a lean for me, but it's one that I quite like.
Yeah, I think that's the question mark, isn't it? The big question, whether he can bounce back from that epic match against Wolf, which is obviously not only physically but mentally draining on him as well, and to play an opponent like Ruud is obviously a much tougher ask. So, but I like the 6.5. I know it's -141, but I think I'll probably play that 6.5, and I may even have a little bit of save at 5.5. I think this might be competitive, and given those stats you said there about the amount of long matches that he's played, Ruud here, you could throw a set in which will cover the 6.5. You'll be in great shape if Zhang does take a set, at least one set. So some interesting ways of looking at the matches. These matches, I remember, are tomorrow on Wednesday. It's the start of round 2 here in New York. We'll be back tomorrow morning, New York American time. We'll be looking at the second round matches again in the bottom half of the draw. There's 4 ways to follow us here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. You can download this podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, which is going high up in the podcast chart. So thank you very much for that. We're in the top 10, both in the UK and in the US. You can download. You can subscribe to our Bet Rivers Studio YouTube channel, and we're getting some great views on there. So thank you very much for watching the show there and also subscribing. Just click the bell and you'll be notified on every time any bit of content drops, not only with the tennis, but all the European soccer leagues as well. And the Premier League is back again in midweek. And the Champions League, the draw for the group stages, is on Thursday. So there's a huge amount of soccer action on there. And you can also follow us on our Twitter handle, @BecauseWeWin, and you can also follow us on our Instagram handle, which is also @BecauseWeWin. You'll see me living up in first class on a British Airways flight, and you'll see me chatting to some workmen trying to repair burst water mains on Times Square. Living the dream. Anyway, Sean, thank you very much. Just give us a quick recap of your official picks, if you could.
Yes, the first one, over 10.5 games in the opening set of Tsitsipas against Stricker. That should be around about +200 with Bet Rivers, that one. And the second one, the official play, taking Safiullin, Roman Safiullin, +1.5 sets against Tommy Paul, to beat Tommy Paul. That's +114 with Bet Rivers.
So there you go. 2 bets, 2 nice prices, lots of leans. And remember to head to the Bet Rivers website. They'll have a load of different markets on all those matches for the second round. The second round action starts tomorrow, and we'll be right across it here at Bet Rivers. Take care, Sean. All the very best, and I'll speak to you again tomorrow.